Good evening. It's May 15th. And on tonight's Hamilton Report, we're going to be talking about something that you don't hear in the media, and that's the word lies. We're talking tonight about lies from school administrators, governors, congressmen, and senators, and we want you to be a part of the conversation. It all starts right now with the Hamilton Report. Friends, I'm so happy that you decided to tune in and spend a little time with us on this Monday evening. You know, back in January, we talked about how this year was going to move quickly. And to think that we are now halfway through May is pretty good evidence that it is moving quickly. Part of that's because we're reorganizing the party as we do every 2 years and leading up to our convention. And we'll be talking more about that later in tonight's broadcast. But it is moving forward, and that means that we are already in the 2024 election cycle. I know it doesn't seem possible, but that's exactly where we find ourselves. But before we go too far in that direction, I want us to think about something that if you grew up in a household like I did, your parents did not tolerate lying. They didn't call it mistruths or half-truths. They called out a lie. The same was true of school teachers and Sunday school teachers and the parents of your friends. People were not afraid to call it a lie because when you do, you understand the full impact of what you have said and the potential consequences of that lie. Somehow along the way, the media has gotten away from using the word lie, liar, lies. They talk about incorrect information or misinformation or disinformation. I think it's time that we just start calling it for what it is, lies. And to get us started in that direction this evening, I want us to take a quick look at something put out by I'm drawing a blank here. We always praise these folks. I'll come back to that in a minute. The Lincoln Project. That's what I was thinking. But I want us to look at that because if you did not watch CNN's quote town hall last week, and I pray that you didn't put yourself through that. I didn't, but I saw some clips. But I'm thankful that the Lincoln Project did. And let's take a look at their response to what happened in last week's town hall meeting.
Please welcome the frontrunner for the Republican nomination, former President Donald Trump.
It was a rigged election, and it's a shame that we had to go through it. It's very bad for our country. All over the world, they looked at it. January 6th, I wasn't involved in it very much. I had the right to do it. So many illegal votes were cast in Wisconsin. I'm not trying to justify anything. I never met this woman. I never saw this woman. Many of these teachers, they're people that really understand weapons. They could kill the baby in the 9th month or after the baby was born. I did finish the wall. I built a wall. I built hundreds of miles of wall. I was totally exonerated, by the way. If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours. I took the documents I'm allowed to. I have the absolute right to do whatever I want with them. Automatically declassified when I took them. Just give me find anything. Yeah, if I think it's an honest election, absolutely I will.
You read those numbers accurately. In just over an hour, Trump spouted lies over two per minute. Now that's pretty remarkable. Nothing so unexpected coming from that person, a twice impeached, failed former president. But what the point that I'd like for us to think about is this. We have become so accustomed to people in positions of power or perceived power lying to us that it has just become a part of our day. We've become numb, in a sense, to all of the lies. And that's why we're talking about it this evening, because it's something that we need to be paying close attention to. And I'll tell you, the GOP is on a roll with their lies and their liar. George Santos, who is a serial liar, pulled the Trump card, if you will, last week when he was arraigned in New York on multiple fraud counts. Now, these are, from what I understand, if he's convicted on all these, that's enough to put him in prison for 200 years. I've not verified that, but I did read that just this morning. The point is that he lied on his resume. He lied to his constituents. He lied to his colleagues. He's lied to the American public and just assumed that he was always going to get away with it. Well, when he got caught, what did he do? He said, it's a witch hunt. It's a frame up. It's, all of the usual rhetoric that we've come to expect from that party. He is, after all, best buddies with Lauren Green and Laura Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they're all working so hard to gather favor from the former failed president. It's okay to file an incorrect something, whatever that business document is, if you fix it. But he made no attempt to do that, but rather just kept covering it up with more lies and more lies and more lies. And my point for all of us tonight is this. We have an obligation to not just listen to what we're being told or read what's being presented to us, but sadly, we have to listen and read between the lines on everything. If we don't, we are subjected to so many lies that it becomes just this avalanche, and the tendency for me, anyway, is just to turn away from everything. Unfortunately, that's not a good way to move forward. That's something we can't afford to do, because then we just allow those lies to control the entire country. I heard just this morning from some folks who were talking about Ryan Walters. Now, we know that Ryan Walters is just that. He's a serial liar as well. But I thought that this was fascinating, not particularly smart on his end, but fascinating because someone in his advisory team, probably someone who doesn't even live in the state of Oklahoma, but makes way more, twice as much as the average Oklahoman, told him to do this. He published this poll on Twitter saying that, Oklahoma families are fed up with Democrats and woke, and fill out this quick questionnaire and sign our petition. Guess what, folks? It was not a petition. It was merely put out by his reelection campaign. We're just a few months into this knucklehead's reign of terror, and he's already planning to run again in 4 years. It's put out by his campaign so that he captures names, email addresses, and phone numbers of people that he can solicit later on. This is while he is working as the superintendent of public instruction for Oklahoma. He has lied about everything he's taken on, lied about the grants that have been presented, lied about which grants are going to be sought, lied about the teachers' unions, calling them terrorist organizations. Now, that's pathetic by anybody's terms. And yet he goes on unimpeded because the governor won't call him a liar. No one in authority in this state will call him a liar. And so that's up to you and to me to make sure that the world knows that our educational system is being led by a liar. We are being funded billions of dollars by the federal government for our public education purposes in Oklahoma. Those grants are expiring, and not nearly enough grant requests have been written to replace those funds. Why? Because he says that anything that is woke, he couldn't define woke in an interview last week, but it's just that great word that he can come up with, woke, that we won't be applying for any grants that are woke. Well, the sticking point is that President Biden's administration has said that students cannot be not taught in public schools because they are binary or they are transgender. Well, to him, that's woke. To me, it's just taking care of Oklahoma's kids. Come on. But that's who we have running our educational system. Another serial liar. Mitch says a firehouse of falsehoods is one of the signs of the beginning of an authoritarian movement. Stay woke. I'm so glad you said that, because this is not new news. We've seen this play out in history. People lie to the point that everyone accepts the lies without questioning them, and then we have fascism at its worst. I appreciate Sandra letting us know that there will be a state school board meeting on May 25th at 9:30 in the morning. I've seen a number of posts inviting people to come to that meeting and supporting teachers and parents and students there, because the parents that Ryan Walters is trying to appease are the most ultra-conservative and the richest Oklahomans, not necessarily in that order. But we're in a place now where we're close, evidently, to a funding agreement between the houses, both the House and the Senate in Oklahoma, and the governor's office. But let me tell you, it's not a win for our public schools when we have to give up millions and millions of dollars so rich Oklahomans can continue to keep their kids in private schools. More lies on top of more lies. The Republican platform on education seems to be one of nationalist indoctrination. Adolphus, you could not have said that any better. Thank you so much for that, because we hear this word indoctrination over and over and over. And yet when Walters was at the Future Farmers of America, what he called his people, he stood up there and he lied. I know everybody that was there and watched it on TV or wherever saw him lie. He said, anytime someone applies for work in my office, I look to see if they were a member of FFA, because those are leaders. You're my people. Well, while he is so much against indoctrination, in the time when he was addressing these young people, he hammered the Biden administration, not his job as superintendent of public instruction. He lied about public instruction. And it was just one lie after another. They gave him a resounding round of applause. What he's looking for is his next new voters, grooming them or indoctrinating them right now. Yes, I said grooming on purpose, because it's not gay people, it's not trans people that are grooming kids. It's people like Ryan Walters and Kevin Stitt. Speaking of Kevin Stitt and his lies, remember when he vetoed funding for the Oklahoma Educational Television Authority? Let me just point out this side item here, and that is that OETA, our public broadcasting stations in Oklahoma, have the highest viewership of any public television in the country. That means there is a longing for public television. People appreciate things that you can't find anywhere else. And why did he veto the funding? Well, first, he said that it was obsolete. It was fine in the 50s, but it's no longer necessary. Well, the next thing he said was changing tactics. He said, well, they're not financially sound. I don't know how long they're going to be around, so I'm just going to veto this funding. That went over like a dead doornail. Well, then finally, he hit on the woke aspect, calling Clifford the Big Red Dog, Sesame Street, as dangerous to children. How many kids have learned to read and count and be better people because of Sesame Street, because of Mr. Rogers? How many of us, like me, learned how to cook in a French kitchen by Julia Child? How many of us tune in for Finding My Roots or great performances? Friday night was one of the best great performances in a long time. It was incredible entertainment. But they want to take that away from us because now, as a third defense on why we're stripping funding from OETA, the governor lies and says they're grooming children. It's not just in Oklahoma. In Texas, the legislature there is lying about the most dense and highest Democratic population in the state, that they are redoing everything when it comes to voting, including the fact that a state appointed official, okay, one person can overturn an election. That is not democracy. That's an authoritarian regime with a fascist motivation. But it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. I was reading some statistics last week on so-called Republican PACs, political action committees. Now, I think most people have become more familiar with PACs over the last few years. These are entities that cannot align with a political party like the Oklahoma Democratic Party because they can't work in conjunction with others, but they can raise money and fund candidates or issues. And what we're finding is that most Republican PACs are spending in excess of 90% of the money they raise on raising more money and paying higher salaries to their employees, with about 10% actually going to support candidates. When they call you on the phone, though, that's not made clear at all. They simply say, I'm calling to raise money for so-and-so. We need your help today. And you can imagine that most of us have cell phones and most of us don't accept calls anymore from block numbers or private numbers or anonymous callers or calls that we just simply don't know. So who are they preying on? They're calling people with landlines, which is largely older Americans. I know that until my mom passed a couple of years ago, she had a cell phone that she took with her everywhere, used it even in her house, but she also had a landline, and it was the landline that called with all the scams and all the schemes. And I say scams, I'm not talking now about, your auto warranty or the fake IRS calls. Those are bad. But what's really bad is when you undermine an individual, you scam money out of them for your own personal greed. This happened in the last election cycle. You can bet it's already happening now. And this problem will continue to grow, continue to exacerbate the very things we're talking about, the lies, and more lies. This, my friends, has become a bigger problem than what you and I can solve. I mentioned Santos. What have you noticed about him? He's talking a lot lately about the very same thing that Senator Lankford is talking about, and half of the entire Congress, the crisis at the border, the crisis at the border. Well, this is a crisis not made by this administration, and frankly, I wouldn't even consider it a crisis. It's a situation that's being dealt with. It's being handled humanely. You may not like the fact that foreigners are coming into this country, but there is a legal way to seek asylum here. That's what's being handled right now. And the folks that are being turned away, they're not stripping babies out of parents' arms the way the last administration did. So no, Senator Lankford, we don't have a crisis except the one that you're manufacturing in your small little head, and then you're putting it out there for the rest of the world as if it's truth, as if it's absolute truth. And I don't know how much longer as a society we can hold on without crumbling underneath this tower of lies that grows every single day. Think about this simple phrase: rampant voter fraud. Now, here we are over 2 years into this presidential election, presidential administration, and they're still talking about mass voter fraud. Well, the only fraud dealing with voting is the one that's being perpetrated upon people who don't have the resources or the brain power to think for themselves or to research things properly. Got a call in here last week. This man was furious with the Democrats, said that he was a lifelong Democrat, had always voted Democrat, but would never vote Democrat again because they've found all this evidence against President Biden and his family. I asked him, and I said, where did you see this? Oh, everywhere. ABC, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. Guess what? The only place that aired was on conservative media, not mainstream media. And I don't care how big of an audience Fox News has. To me, they will never be mainstream. They serve one purpose, and they're doing a pretty poor job even of that. But this man went on to explain how the entire family was corrupt, and we, the Oklahoma Democratic Party, had to do something to get him out of the White House. Guess what we learned over the weekend? The so-called witness that had all this evidence has gone missing. Could it be that that person was never more than a figment of Jim Jordan's mind? And that's why they can't find this so-called informant now? If everything that they have was based on one person's account and now that person is missing, friends, that is not much of an investigation. It holds no weight. And what is it? It's another pack of lies. We are in a time and in a place with resources like we have never had before. Those of us of a certain age remember what it was like in college, where there were no computers. If you had a portable typewriter that you could bring to campus, that was a big deal. And in order to do research, you went to the card catalogs and you searched through microfilm and microfiche. Now, what would have taken us 2 or 3 or 5 days to unearth the information, we have it in seconds. The problem is that we have got to be careful about where we get our news. And I'm not saying this to my viewers because you folks already know this, but it's incumbent upon us to let everyone that we know that that website is a spoof site. No, that's a political propaganda machine. No, that's part of a candidate's process of campaigning. So we've got to help people clarify what's real and what's not. Mitch says, every outlet covered the Republican press conference that made allegations. The Wall Street Journal reported no smoking gun. Thank you for that, because everybody was there. Most people decided not to air it because there was no news there. There just wasn't. And so, friends, it's time for us to be serious. When a legislator says something, our very first instinct should be, what's the validation? If you're telling me something, show me the proof. If you're telling me it's going to cost something, show me the budget. If you're telling me that someone is a terrorist organization, then give me the proof. See, that's what we haven't been doing as Americans, and certainly not as Oklahomans. We have not demanded truthfulness from our elected officials. It's time. It's time for us to stand up, demand the truth, stop the lies, and like many parents know all too well, when your kid lies, you give them a timeout. Well, I have one better. When a politician lies, We vote them out. No timeout. Just go. Just get out. Go lie to your parents if you want. Go lie to your church if you want. But you're not going to lie to the Oklahoma people or the people of the United States anymore. It's a big job, but it's one that each of us can take part in to break apart the lies that are presented as truth. And part of that is, frankly, Fox News. There is no news there. They should call it Fox Fun or Fox Entertainment or Tucker Time or whatever else, but it's not news. Kathy said journalists should not entertain claims without documentation. It cheapens integrity. Kathy, I couldn't agree more. And what you have said underscores what I'm saying, that we don't have to stop with our politicians. If a news outlet reports something, call them. Say, what are your sources on this? What resources did you put into learning this information, and how valid is it? We have business to do, and we have the rights to do it, and we have the strength as Democrats, yes, even here in Oklahoma, to demand truthfulness from people who are completely unaccustomed to giving us the truth. Ooh, I'm sorry. I'm a little wound up, as you can tell. I'm tired of liars. I'm tired of lying. I'm tired of the deceit and the strangulation of our country and of our state. It's the lies that have put us so perilously close now to defaulting as a U.S. government. The first time in the history of this democratic republic that would ever happen. It will impact lives for generations to come if it's not stopped now. The debt ceiling must be raised. It must be a clean raise. And while they talk about not taking Social Security and Medicaid, Medicare as well, they're also plotting to do just that. You don't have to look far to see it. Well, friends, it's been a full half hour, and I hope that I've given you something to think about. I hope that you have been able to understand the urgency here for all of us, because it's a critical time of truth telling. Even for those people who don't like telling the truth, we have to demand it. Very quickly before we go, I want to just say a shout out to Joe Sears, who is watching this evening. That's a real honor for me because I'm a big fan of Joe's work. Such an incredibly talented artist and a true Bartlesville historian and a fixture in Oklahoma that we should all be very proud of. I want to thank each of you for joining us this evening. And here's a special, very special invitation. Our state convention happens in just a couple of weeks, the 3rd and the 4th of June. I hope that it's already on your calendar and that you're planning to join us in Tulsa that weekend. And I'd like for you to just take one more minute with me and hear these words from our guest speaker at the Carl Albert Dinner, Congressman Beto O'Rourke.
Oklahoma Democrats, I can't wait to see you and your amazing chair, Alicia Andrews, on June 3rd. That's when we'll get together at the Carl Albert Dinner to celebrate the important, necessary work of the Oklahoma Democratic Party. So please buy your tickets now for what will be a great time for a great cause. We'll see you soon.
We still have a few tickets left for the Carl Albert Dinner, and I hope that you will join us that evening. Beto is truly one of the outstanding speakers of our time, and I'm very excited to spend an evening with him, and I hope that you will join us. But first, I'll be back again here next Monday evening at 6:30, and I hope that you'll join us and tell your friends, and if something in this broadcast spurred you to action or spurred you to think, then please consider sharing it on your own social media pages so that we can grow our messaging to impact more lives for the better right here in this place we call home. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Truly a treasure of my week is the half hour that we get to spend together on Mondays. From all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you for joining us. Good night.